Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today on Classic Mini DIY. I know it's been a little while since I've uploaded a video. I've actually been out of the country. I went to Iceland. I made a pretty cool video. If you haven't seen that yet, check it out. It's showing up somewhere in the corner here. And it was an awesome time and got some really cool shots, drone footage, things like that. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out. Today, we're going to be talking about exhaust leaks. Now, those aren't the end of the world, but they can be pretty dang annoying. And the Mini is no different. In fact, it's a little bit more prone to exhaust leaks. Unfortunately, just the way everything kind of goes together, it doesn't quite meet up the way it needs to. And you end up with leaking around your exhaust joints. So you have a piece of your exhaust and it couples with another piece of your exhaust. So this piece will slide over the other piece. And the area around that joint is actually what leaks air. Now, that can kind of present itself in a lot of different ways. So if you haven't had an exhaust leak before, the way you can kind of tell that your exhaust is leaking is if you hear something like a hiss, you hear some sort of popping, and it doesn't sound like it's coming from the front of the motor, you know, kind of in front of you while you're driving. And it sounds more like it's coming from underneath you or behind you. You're gonna hear this kind of popping or this like loud hiss or loud airy kind of noise. Now, the way that I look for these leaks and I try and identify them before I start, trying to solve them and figure out what's going on, what I do is I take my shop vac and I plug the hose attached to the shop vac into the blowing end of the shop vac. Now, a lot of shop vacs actually allow you to plug your hose into the exhaust port. And what that does is it changes your shop vac to a shop blow, which is pretty cool. And then what I do is I take the end of the hose and I plug that right up to my exhaust. Now, a few things to think about if you do decide to look for leaks this way is that your shop vac, if totally stuck on your exhaust pipe and taped on, however you decide to do it, I personally use painter's tape because it doesn't leave any residue and it's easy to get off. But if you tape it on, what ends up happening is if your shop vac doesn't have a bypass valve, you can really easily blow out the motor in your shop vac. So keep that in mind. If you do decide to try and find a leak this way, just make sure that your shop vac has a bypass valve, or get an old hose that you don't really care about and poke a whole bunch of holes in it. And that'll kind of allow that venting to happen, although I still wouldn't leave it on for a really long time. But after you plug this into your exhaust pipe, just blowing it through your exhaust isn't going to identify those leaks. The other thing you're going to have to do is take some soapy water and just a perfect squirt bottle, take some Dawn and mix it with some water in here. And just take this squirt bottle and squirt this water kind of around the joints and anywhere you think it might be leaking, because what'll happen is the bubbly water will actually produce bubbles when you blow the air through your exhaust pipe. So you'll be able to really visually see where those leaks are happening. So I've already done this on my car. I kind of forgot to film it when I was doing this, so just keep in mind that I do know where the leaks are on my car already, and honestly they ended up being around just about every single joint, even though I've got really tight band clamps and hanger mounts on the exhaust. So what I'm doing to solve that is using a muffler sealing compound. Now, the muffler sealing compound that I'm using is made by Permatex, so you can take a look here. And it's pretty simple. You just apply this around the seams and around those joints, and then you slide the pipes together and wait 30 minutes, turn on the car, run it for about 10 minutes, and that cures it, and then you have a seal. It's pretty straightforward, but some things you want to keep in mind when you're doing this is that when you do put the sealer on, before you can put it on, you have to wire brush around the areas where you're putting the sealer, and then you have to dampen those areas. And I'll cover that in more detail when I go in and take the exhaust off. But again, Permatex, pretty simple, cool stuff. I've used it before, really like it, so I'm gonna use it again today. All right, so now as usual, when you are working underneath your car, make sure you jack it up and you have jack stands as a safety catch for you so you don't end up dropping the car on your head. That is not something that we wanna do. And then once we're underneath the car, you'll see the full length of the exhaust here and all the different hanger mounts that I've got running on my car right now. Now, a few of these are going to be switched to band clamps when I do this. However, this is what your car is going to look like most likely when you're underneath it and you're looking at your exhaust. So the exhaust is actually quite easy to take off. You'll find all of these bolts right here on the bottom of your hanger clamps, and go ahead and take all of those off. So I'm going to do that for the full length of the car right now, and then once I get that off, we'll start cleaning the surfaces and get ready to actually seal around those joints and make sure that they don't leak anymore. So cue the time lapse. Alright, awesome. So now the exhaust is out of the car. The next thing that we're going to want to do is the bottom end of this manifold here. Let's go ahead and clean that up and try and get as much of the rust and debris off of this thing as we can. And then we can start cleaning up the exhaust itself. Now, my exhaust is basically brand new, so I shouldn't have to do too much cleaning. However, most of you, if you're replacing or just fixing an existing exhaust system, you're going to see all sorts of rust, all sorts of corrosion. It's okay, but you're just going to want to make sure that there's no pinhole leaks, anything like that, because those, even if you seal all the joints perfectly, there's still going to be those leaks if there's holes all over your exhaust. So this is actually a really great time to take a look at that exhaust and determine, hey, do I maybe need a new exhaust rather than just trying to make this one stop leaking? So let's get to cleaning. Alright, so now we're moving on to the next step, which is pretty easy. You are going to take the piping that you are looking to seal. So in this case, you can see the cuts in this pipe mean that this go over this pipe up in here. And so what we're going to do is apply this sealer to the inside of this pipe and the outside of that pipe and slide it on and clamp it together. And you're going to repeat that step all the way down your exhaust and at every single exhaust joint, so that way you get a nice clean seal on each individual exhaust piece. Now, remember, what you have to do is actually wet these pipes a little bit before you put this sealer on here, and that'll just help make sure that that sealer cures and sits properly onto this this piping. So let's go ahead and do that. And so that's all there is to it. Now we just got to repeat that step all the way back to the back of the exhaust, and then we let it cure for 30 minutes. That's it for Classic Mini DIY today. I really hope you found this video helpful, and as always, if you have any questions at all, please post them in the comment section below. I'm always monitoring those comments, and I'll get back to you if I have an answer for you, or I'll point you in the right direction if I don't quite know the answer. And a big thanks to 7 Enterprise. They provide all the cool parts that you see me installing on my car on this channel, whether it's an exhaust, an engine steady, camshaft, whatever. They have got a ton and ton of parts in their selection, and in my opinion, they're the best US parts seller here. They get these parts direct from the UK. Oftentimes they are originals or original reproductions, which is so cool. And they always offer really great competitive pricing. So for your mini parts needs, check it out, 7ENT.com.